First tonight on our news live at 7, Royal Caribbean International wins its bid to create a $100 million beach club on Paradise Island. We'll tell you what it means for the tourism business. Plus, a 37-year-old man appears in court on charges of sex with an underage girl. Details from inside the courtroom. And later, remembering businessman George Myers, family, friends, and associates signed the Book of Condolences. And then in our news at 7:30, it's International Women's Day. We'll take you behind the scenes with a few women who are making waves right here at Cable Bahamas Group of Companies. Our news live at 7 starts now. Happy International Women's Day and welcome to our news live at 7. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Kendino Knowles. Government giving Royal Caribbean International the green light for a multi-million-dollar beach club project for Paradise Island. It's a complete turnaround from what the Prime Minister said while in opposition. Berthany McDermott gets us started tonight.
This is grossly unfair to Bahamians, and the next PLP government will terminate this agreement. No non-Bahamian entity should receive preferential consideration.
3 years after he took this strong position on the matter, the Davis administration, now the government of the day, revealing it has granted approval for Royal Caribbean International for its $100 million beach club project on Paradise Island. Prime Minister Philip Davis says from what was communicated, RCI will break ground right away.
It hopefully will be started because part of the challenges that we have in the country today is what we call attractions for tourism. Very often, and on any given day, we could have up to 30,000 tourists in our port, and there has to be attractions for them. 4
acres of the land granted is Crown land. In a statement, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism Chester Cooper said government intends to convert the Crown land into an equity stake in the project, and the equity stake will be conveyed to the country's sovereign wealth fund. He said it's important to note that the land currently proposed under the project has not been subject to any dispute or litigation. But what has changed since the Prime Minister's strong opposition to the project?
We shaped or reshaped the project to allow greater participation by Bahamians.
Cooper says Bahamians will be invited to invest in the project, in which 49% will be Bahamian owned. The project will cover 17 acres, 13 of which represent privately held land. Bahamian entrepreneur Toby Smith had been fighting for land in the area to develop a $2 million Paradise Island lighthouse and beach club. In June 2020, it was revealed he would sue the government and be represented by now National Security Minister Wayne Monroe. Meanwhile, Cooper says government believes the project will benefit Bahamians.
We think a rising tide will float all boats.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
All right, to learn more about that project, you can visit ournews.bs. Well, a 37-year-old man is facing serious charges after being accused of engaging in sexual activities with a minor. According to court dockets from September 2022 to October 15, 2022, Devard Ferguson had unlawful sexual intercourse with a 12-year-old girl. The girl could not legally consent to the acts because she was under 16. Ferguson was not required to enter pleas to the charges of unlawful sexual intercourse with a minor when he appeared before Senior Magistrate Carolyn Vogt Evans today. Now, bail was denied and he's expected back in court in June for a voluntary bill of indictment. Well, if you took a drive over the last few days, chances are you've seen more traffic cops on the streets, and that's because they're not only beefing up their presence for Police Month, they're also doing their part for Road Safety Week. Head of the Royal Bahamas Police Force Traffic Division, Chief Superintendent David Lockhart, says with thousands of accidents recorded last year, a campaign like this is vital.
We partnered with the Ministry of Transport, who began 1 week of road safety and trying to bring awareness to the general public. We were out on the streets on Monday. We ticketed some person, but we spoke to persons more than ticketed them. We also gave out some pamphlets and some armbands. You can see I'm wearing one now.
Activities aimed at raising awareness about road safety are planned for this week. Lockhart says the ultimate goal is to put a dent in the rising number of traffic accidents.
Last year, we saw a significant increase in traffic fatalities. We had some 55 traffic crashes that resulted in 59 deaths. That was very concerning to us because it had jumped up very high for the previous year. One may say, well, the previous year we were on lockdown or we were restricted to our movements. However, we didn't see it that way. We saw it as an increase that we particularly would not like to have.
All right, we've got much more to get to in a moment, but for now, it's time for your first look at temperatures. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is standing by in the Weather Center. Greg, I understand that allergy season is expected to be worse this year?
Supposed to be worse. Well, it's anticipated that we're going to have some serious problems with that. But
yeah,
if you have those allergies, asking you to take the necessary precaution. Yeah, we know that. Okay, yeah. But it is very cool, well, cooler outside our studios right now under partly cloudy skies. That's all because the frontal boundary has sagged towards the south. It's pushing into the central Bahamas as we speak. The winds are now out of the northeast at 13 miles per hour, and they will continue to pick up as the evening goes on. It feels like temperature is very comfortable, 75 degrees. Around the islands tonight, 76 in Freeport, 75 in Marsh Harbor, Abaco. We pick up 78 in Alistown, Bimini. Over in Great Harbor Key, 76, 75 in Nicholstown here in the capital. Governor's Harbor, you guys are 76 at this hour. Central Bahamas, 78 in Kemps Bay, 79 in Georgetown. Pick up a pair of 77 in Arthurstown, Cat Island, and in Deadman's Key, 75 in Coburn Townsend, Salvador. Southeast Bahamas, 79, Duncantown, Ragged Island, 78 in Colonel Hill, Crooked Island, Delectable Bay also, 77 Abrahams Bay, Turks and Caicos Island, 77, and deep south, Matthewtown, Inagua, you round out our temperature profile at 80. I mentioned a frontal boundary, some isolated showers associated with that, with some moisture still hanging out across the northwest Bahamas, but the boundary actually is out there in the open Atlantic with just the tail end swinging across us. We will continue to see some more showers as a couple of those are starting to swing towards the Grand Bahama area, but that front will continue to sag towards the south. High pressure is building in. We're looking for some very windy conditions on the waters tomorrow. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us to look at your extended forecast.
Thanks, Greg. And still to come on our news, the fete continues with the return of Bahamas Carnival. Organizers say this year will be bigger and better. And Holmes Rock Junior High is set to open this year. The Ministry of Works reveals why the project faced delays. And later, signing the Book of Condolences for the late George Myers as Bahamians remember his contributions to the business community. That's coming up when our news returns. Bahamas Carnival is back after a pandemic hiatus and a soft relaunch last year. Organizers are saying that this year's return is expected to be even bigger and better. Megan Shepard has the details.
The fete continues as Bahamas Carnival experience returns to the roads of Nassau this May 18th through the 21st. Principal of Polantra Media Group, His Excellency Sebastian Bastian, says significant investments have been made into the product and the payoff has been evident.
Carnival historically has brought over 15,000 revelers to these events over the course of each day, and it's been a significant part of an economic boost, stopover visitors that come here from other parts of the region to participate in our carnival.
Some 14 bands have already come on board to participate, and according to former president of the Band Owners Association, Dario Torelli, they can expect an even more picturesque route.
For many years we have experimented with different route, and finally we got what we wanted last year, and it was amazing. What that gave us as a destination is that scenic route. Nobody else in the Caribbean has that, and just that small parade caused the world to look at us. When we went around Go Slow Bend, I think that's when we got all the coverage.
And of course, completing the carnival experience, there will be a grand concert featuring the best in Bahamian and international names.
The lights of Marshall Montano, Kess, the band, along with Fayan and Bungie, the road winners from this year's Carnival Parade. And this year we also having a reggae flavor in the lights of Buju Banton.
The Rising Star competition will also make its return this year. To find out how you can enter a custom song, be sure to tune into Our News Weekend Edition. Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepard.
All right, thanks for that, Megan. Well, the country's major revenue collector, the Bahamas Customs Department, celebrating 109 years of service this month. Assistant Controller Claretta Gomez says the month will be filled with activities to commemorate their hard work.
Over the years, we have been known as the major collectors of revenue up to the implementation of the collection of that. We have been known to collect over in an estimate of about $1 billion annually of revenue. So I can say that our role is there to substantiate the revenue collection for the Bahamas government.
And while she admits there has been some growing pains over the years, Gomez says their efforts in revenue collection have been recognized, and the aim this year is to surpass that.
We've had staff challenges. And what we're doing now is there will be an addition to our staff of over 160 personnel. We've also been working hard on becoming a modernized department. So we are now bringing ourselves up to best practice standards with customs throughout the world. So we are proud to say that we have implemented a lot of training exercises, and we have built capacity within our department. So as we saw the challenges and we saw the needs, we worked hard on correcting them.
All right, and now to our work in progress segment. Tonight we move to the western end of Grand Bahama as the Ministry of Works is preparing to wrap up construction at Holmes Rock Junior High School. In an exclusive interview with our Talia Hall, the Deputy Director of Works explaining some of the reasons for the construction delay.
Ground was broken for the Holmes Rock Junior High School in 2016, and there have been a number of delays over the years. But according to Deputy Director of the Ministry of Works, Robert Muzaz, come August, the school should be complete and ready to welcome students.
The building is 90% complete, so all we have to do is the earthworks and creating the car parks and connecting to the main grid. So there are key items that we need to do, but we feel that if we are supplied with funding and we can procure the materials from which we need to do from overseas, we should open in for the next summer term.
The Deputy Director also revealing the reason for the recent delays.
We've had trouble with funding. I think that has to be clear that there's limited funding at the moment because of the last few years of COVID, and that's sort of the supply chain is very difficult at the moment, long lead items.
He says a part of the junior high school will also have an area that's a hurricane shelter.
We are trying our best to get that done. We understand the importance of that school for the area of Grand Bahama.
Reporting for Work in Progress for Our News, I'm Italia Hall.
When Our News comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as the Caribbean Tourism Organization sees a major boost in visitor arrivals. Plus, a college fair set for Grand Bahama tomorrow, what you need to know to get a head start. And later, we're highlighting 3 of the leading women in tech at Cable Bahamas group of companies. We'll introduce you to them when Our News continues. This is Our News. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. Mexican authorities say they believe the kidnapping of 4 Americans, 2 of whom died in Matamoros, was the result of a confusion by criminals and clarified that there are no U.S. agents in the country. A road trip to Mexico for cosmetic surgery veered violently off course when the Americans were caught in a drug cartel shootout. The surviving Americans now in a Texas hospital where they are being treated. U.S. health officials are alerting consumers about 2 more recalls of eye drops due to contamination risks that could lead to vision problems and serious injury. The Food and Drug Administration posted separate recall notices for certain eye drops distributed by Pharmedica and Apotex after the company said they are voluntarily pulling several lots of their products from the market. The announcement follows a recall last month of eye drops made in India that were linked to an outbreak of drug-resistant infections. 1 person died and at least 5 others had permanent vision loss. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak defending his government's proposal to stop almost all migrants ever claiming asylum. During a heated session of Prime Minister's questions, Sunak said stopping the small boats crossing the channel was not just one of his government's priorities, but the people's priority. The new legislation is the latest in a series of contentious immigration policies put forward by the Conservative government under successive prime ministers aimed at stopping people arriving on England's coast by small boats.
But stopping the boats, Mr. Speaker, stopping the boats is not just my priority, it is the people's priority. But his position on this is clear. He wanted to, in his words, scrap the Rwanda deal. He voted against measures to deport foreign criminals, Mr. Speaker, and he even argued against deportation flights. Well, and we know why, because on this matter, he talked about his legal background. He's just another lefty lawyer standing in our way.
Mr. Speaker, he stood there last year saying exactly the same thing. We said it wouldn't work. They passed the law. The numbers went up. Absolutely deluded.
And finally, the Caribbean Tourism Organization says tourists flocked to the Caribbean last year, numbers not seen since the pandemic began. According to CTO, the Dutch Caribbean and U.S. territories like Puerto Rico surpassing even pre-pandemic visitor arrivals. More than 28 million people visited the region in 2022. That's a more than 50% jump compared to the previous year. The U.S. market drove more than 50% of arrivals to the region, with 14.6 million U.S. tourists visiting, 3 million more than the previous year. And back here at home, senior government officials, both past and present, gathering to pay their respects and sign the book of condolences for tourism giant and businessman George Myers. Myers relocated to the Bahamas in 1963, where he devoted his life to hospitality for over 40 years. Prime Minister Philip Davis and Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper remembering him for his stellar contribution to tourism over the years.
He, no doubt, was one of the icons in the tourism field that helped crop up and make the Bahamas what it is today.
He has certainly made his mark. The best way we can memorialize him is to pattern our investment and business practices after what he has done.
Myers, who died back on February 16th, began his career at Nassau Beach Hotel, moving through the ranks from bar manager to general manager and vice president by 1967. He then became president of Resorts International, where he played a major role in the development of Paradise Island, referring to Myers as Mr. Tourism. Former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram says he and Myers were personal friends, while F&M leader Michael Pintard says he's always admired Myers' work.
I spent a good bit of time with him. He liked to eat, as his size suggested. I had many dinners with him at his home on Paradise Island.
From a distance, I had tremendous admiration for his business acumen and his commitment to the Bahamas. And so we're grateful for his life, for his contribution, and we're grateful for his family for loaning him.
Still to come in our news, today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was March 8th as we saw the introduction of the Local Government Act. Plus, Greg is back with your extended weather forecast. And then in our news at 7:30, we'll tell you why gas retailers are saying enough is enough again. That's coming up when our news returns. Welcome back.
This segment of the news is brought to you by H.G. Christie. List your home in Grand Bahama with H.G. Christie. Visit our new office in the Port Lakaya Marketplace. H.G. Christie, celebrating over 100 years of service.
Gemini Educators and Associates and Educational and Counseling Organization is preparing to host a college fair at the Bahamas Union of Teachers Hall in Grand Bahama tomorrow. The college fair begins at 8:30 a.m. Administrator Kishana Palmer is encouraging all 9th through 12th grade students as well as recent high school graduates to attend, as she says students will be able to learn more information about various colleges abroad as well as local colleges.
We have Monroe College in New York, as well as Tennessee State University in Tennessee. We have Millikan University in Illinois, Oakwood University in Tennessee, as well as our 2 local colleges, University of the Bahamas and Tarif College. And so they'll really be there to talk about international admissions, scholarship opportunity, and then I guess finding a way to bring them together for our international students, possibly seeking to go to school abroad, as well as if you're comfortable with staying home and maybe even pursuing after work opportunities.
And she says for high school students, sometimes going to college can be a tedious process, so it's very important to gain all the knowledge that you can in advance.
A lot of times we go to college with one set major in mind and we end up changing majors, so I think starting off earlier allows you to at least kind of have a field in mind, whether you switch it in the 10th grade, 11th grade, but you're kind of narrowed down by the 12th grade to know exactly what you would like to study and where you would like to study it. And so I think it's great to start at least from the 9th grade with just a general feel of where you would like to go or what you would like to study.
All right, it's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was March 8th. Take a look. On this day in Bahamian history in 1996, Parliament implemented the Local Government Act establishing the parameters for local government. It was implemented for all of the islands except for New Providence, where the central government administers the island's affairs. Local government previously existed in the Bahamas in the form of appointed board of works. During that time, towns and villages are said to have held their influence over these board of works, but almost all final decisions were made by the central government through the island's commissioner. And finally, in 2018, the first 3-day Bahamas Natural History Conference, which was held at the College of the Bahamas, ended today. The Historical Society notes that it was organized by the Bahamas National Trust under the theme highlighting the importance of research, conservation, and environmental stewardship. The forum attracted researchers, educators, students, and naturalists from the Bahamas and abroad. All right, it's International Women's Day, and this year's theme focuses on technology and gender equality. We're highlighting 3 of the leading women in tech at the Cable Bahamas group of companies. Our Marlena Leonard has their story.
Digital, innovation and technology for gender equality is the theme of International Women's Day. And while that's the focus today, there are some people who are actively working toward this goal every day. Women like Robin Roll, Lakita Adderley, and Tanya Bain, who are the women behind a lot of what happens on your screens. Robin Roll has been with the company since 2001.
So I support anything point of sales. So when you go in the store, the system that you use, that's what I do. So I work closely with a lot of the other application leads because we have a lot of integrated systems. And so we're here just to make sure that the customer experience is as smooth and as efficient as possible.
Lakita Adderley was an IT teacher before joining the Cable Bahamas group of companies. At this job, her passion is using technology to make jobs and lives easier.
We created a bot to do work for the CX team that normally takes 6 persons up to 72 hours to complete a task. The bot now completes that task in 3 hours. So when I think about, computers and my passion towards it, that's it. Doing something better, more efficiently.
Tanya Bain's role as a lead application and support development specialist spans multiple departments.
I can say that I am not your average or traditional IT person. I work with a large amount of different departments across the IT sector. As it relates to UI functionality, I'm the person who would actually go ahead, make sure that the customer interface is actually met and it's appropriate for us to push into market.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Marlena. And to watch that story again, and for any of today's top stories, you can visit ournews.bs. That's going to do it for us in News at 7. Joining us now is Italia Hall with the latest headlines. Italia, happy International Women's Day.
And it was so great to see so many women across the country be celebrated by their companies, families, and friends.
Absolutely.
We play a very strong role.
And we celebrate you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ken. I appreciate it. Well, coming up in news tonight, why gas retailers are ready to take action. Also, the FNM leader is reasserting his position. We'll tell you why straight ahead.
Ready to take action first tonight on Our News Live at 7:30. The gas retailers say they are fed up with government, what they plan to do next. And a man accused of molesting a toddler is heading to trial. Details tonight in Court News. Plus, what led the Free National Movement leader to reassert his leadership over the party? And later, how one business is giving back to organizations that help vulnerable women on International Women's Day. Our News Live at 7:30 starts in a moment.
Hey, Queen. Hey, Queen. Hey, Queen. Sister.
Girl, you've done it again.
You are constantly raising the bar for all of us and doing so flawlessly.
You do know that you're that girl, right?
I hope that when you wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, you see how divine you are.
Know that so many people want what you got.
You have dreams to fulfill and promises to yourself that you must keep.
I know at times you feel underappreciated and misvalued.
Trust me, we've all been there.
So it's necessary that you can count on yourself.
So don't go seeking perfection.
Extend yourself a little grace.
Don't be afraid to celebrate the little wins as much as the big ones.
You, Miss Thing, are courageous. You are dynamic. You are principled.
So, baby girl, remember, respect is a minimum.
There's a sweet justice in knowing that the path you're on was designed for you and you alone.
Doing right by yourself never goes out of style.
Everything about you is majestic and a force to be reckoned with.
Trust me, people are paying attention.
You are special and worthy of praise. Don't shy away from it.
You don't have to get your groove back, because guess what? You never lost it.
It's important to rest. Make sure your hustle doesn't get in the way of your health.
Girl, take care of yourself.
And the next time you want to second guess yourself, don't do it.
So pause for a second right now.
Relax, relate, and release.
You are needed. You are appreciated.
Girl, you make me so proud. And I love you.
Remember,
you are 100%
that queen.
Oh, yes.
Welcome to Our News and thank you for joining us. I'm Italia Hall. Gas retailers are once again expressing their frustrations with government over low price margins, amongst other issues. They now say they are ready to take action. Our Joshua Williams has the details.
Be it FNM or PLP, the government itself makes all the money.
That's the message Bahamas Petroleum Retailers Association want to get across to Bahamians and residents. The association holding an emergency meeting today to air their grievances and determine a course of action.
And we asked the Prime Minister if he is here. Prime Minister Davis, could you kindly meet with the President and myself and our executive team so we can further discussions along in regards to what we need to do to keep gas station operators in this country operable.
Vice President Vasco Bastian says retailers have been plagued with the same issues for some time now.
High operating costs, high electricity. The government just saw fit, I think about the beginning of January 1 of this year, to increase minimum wage. Minimum wage then in turn increase national insurance contribution. So there's a whole list of issues that the association has.
Bastian says the government takes the bulk of the profit made on gas and as a result cuts into the profits of retailers.
They get $1.72. And we, the owners and investors of this business, get 54 cents. The government gets 3 times what we get.
We spoke to residents who say while they do not wish to be inconvenienced at the pump, they understand the gas operators' plight.
Gas stations make a lot of their money from the products that they sell on the inside, not really from the gas that they sell. I think it's high time we need to do something with the gas situation, though.
I mean, it's a business. At the end of the day, you have to take into account your costs. So if you have to do certain things to make a profit, then that's what you have to do. I can't tell you how to run your business, and I don't want you to tell me how to run mine.
Well, fuel itself, it's a necessity in society. So the idea of them going on strike, I don't think that's a good idea.
The Bahamas Petroleum Association says they're now ready to take action and that the public will be made aware of these measures in the coming days. Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
All right, thanks for that report, Joshua. Well, Southern Division officers arresting a woman and a man after marijuana was found in their home on Tuesday. Police say it was around 6:30 p.m. when officers executed a search warrant on a home on Maxwell Lane in Rock Crusher, where they found marijuana-infused cookies along with a stash of marijuana. Now, the drugs weighed 4.8 pounds and have an estimated street value of $4,800. The marijuana-infused cookies are worth an estimated $5,375. Well, a man accused of molesting his 3-year-old daughter was today committed to stand trial. The 27-year-old man, who has not been named to protect his daughter's identity, will be tried on charges of incest, indecent assault, and child cruelty. The charges stem from incidents that allegedly took place from February 24, 2022 to February 26, 2022. The man, who is on bail, will be arraigned before Senior Justice Bernard Turner on August 4th. 3 months after taking legal action against his party, a Supreme Court justice handing down an order in favor of Free National Movement Vice Chairman Richard Johnson, who claimed the party violated his constitution when it barred him from attending future council meetings. In her ruling on March 8, 2023, Justice Deborah Fraser ordered that party leader Michael Pintard and Chairman Dr. Dwayne Sands are prohibited from interfering with Johnson in the discharge of his function as a duly elected vice chairman of the party. It's also specifically noted that this includes his attendance at and participation in all meetings of the Executive Committee and the Central Council. Johnson obtained legal counsel from former PLP Marco City MP Gregory Moss. Now, we will have much more in the story in tomorrow's newscast. Amid what some may deem infighting within the Free National Movement, FNM leader Michael Pintard says he's in control of the party. His comments come after both he and former leader Dr. Hubert Minnis spoke at separate constituency meetings on Tuesday night.
I am fully in control of the Free National Movement, and the team supports my leadership fully, and we fully expect come 2026 to be returned as the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Speaking at the Centerville Association meeting, Pintard says there needs to be unity and loyalty within the party. Meanwhile, at a Garden Hills meeting, Dr. Minnis acknowledged Pintard as the leader, adding he respects the party's leadership. Pintard says his mission is to hold the government accountable and rebuild the party since the crushing defeat in 2021.
My role is hold the government accountable, rebuild the credibility of the party on the ground with constituents, and then also in my own constituency to make sure that Marco City is strong.
We saw some showers around the capital today, but is there more rain ahead? Meteorologist Greg Thompson has a look at our current conditions over in the Weather Center live. Good evening, Greg.
May see 1 or 2 more showers later on tonight, but most of the activity is now pushing into the central Bahamas. That's all with the front. We'll tell you about that a little later on, though. Comfortable conditions outside our studios. Cooler, 75 degrees under partly cloudy skies. The winds are starting to pick up out of the northeast at 40 miles per hour, and your field strike temperature is at 75 degrees. Satellite view, spotty showers now still hanging around the northwestern portions of the central Bahamas, all associated with a frontal boundary that's pushed into the central Bahamas right now. That front will continue to sag, high pressure builds across us, so we're looking for windy conditions tonight through tomorrow. That's your quick check on weather. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on Our News, development is on the way for Paradise Island now that Royal Caribbean International has won a land battle for a major project. This as a chef serves up solid advice on entrepreneurship, and later something is cooking up at Beverly's Kitchen, celebrating 28 years in the business. That and more coming up on the other side of this break. We are
3 years after it took a strong position on the matter, the Davis administration has granted approval for Royal Caribbean International to build a $100 million beach club project on Paradise Island. Prime Minister Philip Davis says from what was communicated, RCI will break ground right away.
From the timeline that was given, they intend to start breaking ground almost immediately. It hopefully will be started because part of the challenges that we have in the country today is what we call attractions for tourism. Very often, on any given day, we could have up to 30,000 tourists in our port, and there has to be attractions for them.
Tourism Minister Chester Cooper says Bahamians will be invited to invest in the project, which will cover 17 acres, 13 of which represents privately held land. Bahamian entrepreneur Toby Smith had been fighting for land in the area to develop a $2 million Paradise Island lighthouse and beach club. Now, in June 2020, it was revealed he would sue the government and be represented by now National Security Minister Wayne Monroe. Meanwhile, Cooper says government believes the project will benefit Bahamians.
We think a rising tide will float all boats. We believe this will get more people off the ships, and certainly once they get off the ships, other businesses will have an opportunity also to cross-sell those businesses, those tourists who come.
Global Culinary Incorporated is partnering with the University of the Bahamas to provide monetary and professional assistance to students in the culinary department. Co-founder of Global Culinary chef Romero Dorset says the company seeks to teach students the ins and outs of the culinary business.
Being an entrepreneur is really important. We wanted to give students the opportunity to shadow us and to study us and to show them the art of being an entrepreneur. Many times we look at popular people and we don't know the ins and outs of business. We don't know what happens because there's no one that's really teaching us. So we wanted to definitely push forward and help students to bridge the gap between what's the knowledge that they think they know and the actuality of being an entrepreneur.
And that entrepreneurial spirit led Dorset to co-found Global Culinary Incorporated. He says the company sought to fill the need for professional chefs locally and to present a platform to present ideas.
Know that there was a lot of times that persons were not able to find and seek chefs, so we wanted to create a hub where persons can come find qualified chefs that would have already been vetted, that would have already been experienced and exposed, so that they can now have, so that they can actually now use this platform to push their ideas.
All right, good news. While a local food eatery has remained a staple in the Bahamian community for nearly 30 years, and with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the restaurant has adapted and expanded to further serve all who come through their doors. Our Joshua Williams has the story.
Beverly's Kitchen has been serving the island, in particular the Carmichael Road community, for over 20 years. The restaurant, which serves Bahamian and Jamaican food, prides itself on authenticity. Co-founder of the establishment, Marcia Duncan, says the business came from humble beginnings.
We literally was cooking food at home in Centerville back in the late 80s, early 90s. And when we moved to Carmichael, we noticed that there was no restaurant as such here. So we wanted to kind of create something. There was nothing out here when we actually opened. There was only a couple places. And so this is one of the first Caribbean, Bahamian restaurant down here. And that was in 1997.
The COVID-19 pandemic forced Beverly to shift away from indoor dining to a convenience store setup. Duncan says this adjustment has been a blessing in disguise.
I thank COVID sometimes, and sometimes I say, you know, COVID gave us a lick in it, but we're still here ticking. Since COVID, we've not been able to do dine-in, or we have not. We actually started a new store. We started Beverly's Caribbean Mart because there was no longer a dine-in facility, or we were no longer allowed by the government to do dine-in at the time. So we had to become creative, so we started a little mini grocery store.
A Jamaican by birth, Marcia is proud to be a Bahamian citizen and is happy to continually contribute to the economy.
It's important to have jobs or to create jobs for local Bahamians.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
When Our News comes back from the break, the 50th Carifta Games is just around the corner, and young people are doing their part to make the sporting event a success. We'll tell you how straight ahead.
Plus, coming up in sports for tonight, University of the Bahamas now looking to build its athletic programs with recruitment drives. We'll give you details on how they plan to do it just ahead in sports.
Plus, the realities of being a woman working in tech. That story coming up on this International Women's Day. Stay with us. This is our news. Welcome back. Oftentimes when large national events are held in the country, it's usually older individuals carrying the baton, but that's not the case with the 50th edition of the Carifta Games that are set to be held on the Easter holiday weekend. Senior Director of Marketing and Partnerships for the local organizing committee, Culinary Hannah says young people have been involved in the planning process from day one.
This is a junior program. There's absolutely no reason why juniors are not at the forefront. My marketing team is 20-year-olds. The photographer of this 50th Carifta Games is 25 years old. Chappelle Wims Jr., Calpurnia Campbell. Young girl is a genius behind the scenes. The setup crew are young men. The IT tech that's led by Michelangelo, brilliant. A brilliant writer, he's in his 30s.
And that's not all. They plan on keeping the Bahamian crowd fully entertained during the 3-day competition. Hannah explains.
We have the Junior John Canoe winners, CV Bethel Stingrays. They're going to be combined with the Genesis Warhawks, Teen Hawks. We are going to have for the first time a major John Canoe band in the stadiums. They're going to come here and they're going to have the stadium rocking for the 3 days.
This segment of the news is brought to you by H.G. Christie. List your home in Grand Bahama with H.G. Christie. Visit our new office in the Port Lakaya Marketplace. H.G. Christie, celebrating over 100 years of service.
The UB Mingo set to host a recruiting drive for volleyball in Grand Bahama. Meanwhile, the government school's track and field meet underway at the Thomas A. Robinson Stadium. Here's Marcellus Hall with a check on sports.
Thanks so much, Italia. Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. The University of the Bahamas continues to develop its athletic programs. One way to do that is by having recruitment drives. They're now taking their show on the road to Grand Bahama this weekend, hoping to garner some student athletes. Let's take a look. University of the Bahamas looking for the next big athletic stars this weekend in Grand Bahama. The men's soccer team, men's basketball team, and women's volleyball team will be recruiting athletes this weekend at the St. George's Gym. The women's volleyball program is on the rebound, and head coach Raymond Wilson says he's not only looking for the diamond in the rough, but an all-around student athlete.
We at the University of the Bahamas be looking at also recruiting the next generation of professionals. Persons who have a desire to become doctors, lawyers, accountants, educators, And we are going to Grand Bahama, yes, to look for good athletes who can increase and strengthen our program, but we're looking for persons who can strengthen our professional arena in regards to the Bahamas. We're hoping that we can get persons who are strong in education and also has good athletic abilities.
Meanwhile, here in New Providence, 3 SSSA Track and Field Championships underway. Day 1 activities at the Thomas A. Robinson Stadium. The event is expected to wrap up on Friday afternoon. And that's your check on sports here on this Wednesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Italia.
Focus on helping vulnerable women get a helping hand this International Women's Day? And is there more rain in the forecast this week? Craig is back in the Weather Center with the answer when our news continues.
Under 1 year, she continued to raise her voice advocating for survivors of
All across the world, women pausing to celebrate International Women's Day. The quest continues for a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination, a world of diversity and equality. From the United States, where First Lady Jill Biden honored women of courage, to Queen Camilla across the pond in the United Kingdom, celebrating inspiring women at Buckingham Palace. The quest, as we said, continues. And in just a moment, we pause to recognize some extraordinary efforts of organizations and women making a difference every day. But for now, we've seen high temperatures, cloudy skies. Greg joins us again from the Weather Center with your extended forecast. Greg, today is International Women's Day. I don't have on my purple, but I thought you would have had on your purple today.
We didn't get that memo.
Well, I hope you told all of the special women in your life happy International Women's Day.
If you didn't hear it then, let's just give it to you now. Happy International Women's Day. Hope you do enjoy the rest of what's left of the day. It's going to be pretty nice throughout the night and into tomorrow, so take charge of that.
All right, thanks, Greg.
Okay, satellite picture. We do have a weak front boundary dropping into the central and southeast Bahamas. Couple isolated showers associated with that system. We will continue to see one of those later on tonight through tomorrow, but the winds expected to pick up behind this as a high pressure system develops. And if you notice out there in the open Atlantic, we have a very large low pressure system that's going to provide some very hazardous beaching and boating conditions for us for the next couple of days. So do prepare for that as we expect conditions to get hazardous over the next several days. Future forecast showing a couple isolated showers located with that system, but all in all, it should be dry tomorrow. And of course, as I mentioned, breezy conditions expected. Boating conditions tonight through tomorrow, small craft advisory for you guys. Northeasterly winds 15 to 20 knots. Seas running 4 to 6 feet, but they will be up to 6 to 9 feet in some northeasterly swells. Your high tide will be at 8:36 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your extended forecast, couple isolated showers still lingering. Another front expected by the weekend, but conditions staying near the 80-degree mark. Natalia?
All right, thanks so much, Greg. Well, 3 women-centered organizations, the Bahamas Crisis Center, PACE, and the Zonta Club of New Providence, receiving a $5,000 donation from Culinary Insurance Limited. Culina's Director of Corporate Communications, Maxine Seymour, says the initiative is a part of Culina's commitment to promoting equality for women.
Today we recognize the achievements of women across our archipelago and in the wider world. At Colina, we strive to create a gender-equal workplace, void of stereotypes and bias, where inclusion is embraced and diversity is celebrated. Our company's success is driven by women, who comprise 80% of our employees and agents and 72% of the supervisors, managers, and executives who lead the charge.
Now, Seymour says each year for International Women's Day, Culina contributes to organizations whose sole purpose is to protect and empower women.
The Bahamas Crisis Center, for example, keeps a pantry so that when women, have to be sheltered or they just may be on difficult times, that they're able to provide food. We heard about all the work that PACE does. They need to get books for the students and they need to get certain feminine items for them and then things for the babies as well. And we heard that Zonta has far-reaching impact in terms of all that they do in our society to help women, even as far as the Department of Corrections. And so we wanted to be able to give a donation toward their work.
In our 7 p.m. newscast, we met some of the women behind Cable Bahamas Group of Companies' IT department. But in this report, we learned more about the realities of being a woman in the traditionally male-dominated field. Marlena Leonard has the details.
This year's theme for International Women's Day may be digital, innovation and technology for gender equality, but there's certainly more work to be done when it comes to equality. Lakita Adderley, an IT project manager, tells us that sometimes when you're the only woman in the tech field space, some men make the assumption that you're the note taker when you're actually the one about to lead a meeting.
Some men, they think that, okay, we're the men, we know everything in this field. Of course, it's a male-dominated field. So having not only smart, not only attractive, not only talented women in the field, it kind of intimidates some men.
One of the Cable Bahamas Group of Companies' lead application and support development specialists, Tanya Bain, says her way of navigating any potential issues in the workplace is to address them head on.
I own what I do, and no one can take that from me. I walk into the room, and I could have a small or a large conversation with any male figure sitting in front of me. When I walk into the room, I'm going to demand the attention, because at the end of the day, gender does not define what role or what career path that I should be on. This is my field, and I'm going to own it.
Application support lead Robin Roll says in her experience, she's been spared of males discriminating and has actually been offered help from most. She credits the company culture at the Cable Bahamas Group of Companies, but adds that a big part of garnering respect is the ability to compartmentalize and separate emotions from business.
We can find solace, we can find comfort, we can find an air amongst our own tribe, our female tribe, so that when we then go out there, they don't see us as the women that are emotional, but we're coming because we now are going to give them what we believe is best suited for the business.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
All right, thanks, Marlena. Such an inspirational story. And happy International Women's Day to all. And with that, we thank you for joining us for Our News tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.